manje sekhulaba isikhona impilo zoba ngcono ngoba sithemba umdala ukhona started from the bottom manje sekhulaba isikhona impilo zoba ngcono ngoba sithemba umdala ukhona siphela umoya asiphela umoya siphela umoya umdala ukhona siphela umoya siphela umoya.
To the family, it's like it's not Lobola is not like you're purchasing or like itla kaureka itla mo and then no, you understand. That is why we don't even promote divorce even if it's practiced. But then as a black child you do show acknowledgement to everything. Ba rutile ka tlhompho, ba rutile ka ho appreciate that, you understand. Ngwana le maitsego to understand the background that they coming from, they show appreciation.
Literal rocks, where the families were saying we are in agreement to let this man take our daughter and take care of him the best way that he knows how. So it wasn't always that if a man was incapable of meeting those particular requirements that he could not marry. But now in the current.
Greetings, Sanbonani, Dumelani, Abshini, hello out there once again. It's your boy AK back again with another episode of Real Talk with AK, you know. We are still on the People's Podcast Network here, you know. We are still all about seeking practical solutions for practical societal issues that exist within our communities. And on this episode, I'm actually being joined by a few special guests, you know. It's not one, it's not two, but it's more than two, you know. But those are some of the things that will actually get you as the episode actually pushes through, you know. But before we actually jump into today's episode, just a quick reminder for our new viewers to click that subscribe button there, and also go follow us across our podcasting streaming platform. The People's Podcast Network is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So those are some of the streaming platforms that you can use if you're not into visuals, you know. But apart from that, on this episode we'll actually be talking about gender roles, you know. How like a boy child and a girl child are raised in African families, you know, because at the end of the day those are some of the things that shape how we see the world, you know. But before we actually do that, let me just give my guests in studio the platform to introduce themselves, let us know who they are, where they're from, and what they do. So I think let me start with the lady that side.
Greetings. My name is Matshidiso Matee. I'm a writer, and I'm for the most part based in the Lobola area. And yeah, let's have a talk and see how we can change the world.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Mr.
Once again, my name is Kagiso Maboela. Mostly knows me as KG Maboela. I represent Black Child today, you know, because I've been working with it for some time.
Yeah.
But then I'm from Pretoria originally, and I work within the institution of University of Johannesburg. I conduct a lesson in the industrial psychology in people's performance management. Yeah, man, that's me. That's my life. I'm also a graduate of 2 qualifications. It's not so far. And yeah, I graduate with a cum laude, by the way.
Oh,
yes, Black Excellence.
Black Excellence.
It's a privilege, or it's an appreciation for me to be obtaining that. But then I'm glad to be here with the podcast to represent Black Child, and as well as to discuss the topic that we have outlined today. So yeah, let's kick it in.
Aye, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
You.
Hey, Mr. Black Child, who are you that side, man?
Oh, okay, I'm just the audience.
I'm only doing this because he's the one that brought us together.
Yes.
So like, we can't just start the show without him introducing himself, because even when it drops, when they come and watch it, they're gonna be like, we saw his face on the poster. Where is he? You know? What Komela? No. But apart from that, let me just kick off the episode and by asking like this question. You know, this is gonna be our opening question for the conversation.
Sure.
Like, so we are talking about gender roles. You know, how like how a boy and a girl child are raised in African families. What will you say are like the traditional gender roles in most African families in most cases? You know, anyone of y'all can jump in. It's not formal.
I mean, I feel like I think gender roles, if we are going to go on a general basis, the young men usually get the hard labor, you know, and I don't really like the term hard labor because then it feels as if I'm minimizing household work. But oftentimes the younger the boys or the male children are often assigned the work of doing the garden, a lot of stuff that requires physical strength, one would say. And the girl children are assigned the more domestic part of the household work, where you'll find the girl child is trained to cook and clean and do the laundry and stuff like that. That's where, I think, for the most part, that's where it is. That's the general idea. Yeah. So I think that's where it is.
Right. Thank you. From my perspective, I think it depends. You know, I think it depends with the dominancy of gender in the house. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
By this I mean that if as a boy you grew up around females, there's a different task that you would carry. You know, because I'm speaking from my perspective.
Yeah.
And then if you're a male growing up surrounded by males, then there'll be different responsibilities in the house. You understand? From my perspective, I could say that because it's quite different, you know. From me, I grew up literally. I was raised by my grandmother, you know, my mother, my sister as well. You know, it's all females in the house. Do you understand? And then you understand? And now it gets difficult for some of the things. But then now, as much as it said, the females they cook, they do all that. Yes, I do agree with that, because of now with how it is came, I did everything, you know. It wasn't a matter of mohabi amang, you know. It was a matter of like, you must be clean in the house. Do you understand? And then in most cases, like pay attention to a point whereby it's only males in the house. Even the place it doesn't, you know. I'm not saying men are not clean, but then like it's natural that most men, even if they're required to do the labor and like or bathing or whatever, hard labor outside, they wouldn't do it only if it's dominancy of them in the house, you know. But then they do it if there's a certain gender of female in the house, a feminine or like in the house. You understand? So that it can influence or by them. So now, from how I grew up at my house, because of I was raised by my grandmother and my mother, but then most of the time in the house, I was required to like I'm not the one cooking, but then I have to do the dishes. And most of the time, you know, it's your sister or it's someone else, and it's rather your mom or something. It's much more likely that it happens like that. You understand? Unless if at your house they teach you how to take care of yourself, that no, don't be a person of being too relaxed and not doing what is required in the house. But then they teach you a certain responsibility of, by the time when you step out there, you can be able to stand for yourself. You can be able to take care of yourself before any other female could do so. You understand? So now that's what I have learned, you know, through when I was growing up, to say that for the mere fact that I was surrounded by females, I knew what is it that females do. You understand? Because I just don't want to mention names. I have certain experiences that I've seen for me to speak about what I'm talking about. Remember that I'm still a student before my job, right? But by the time when I was doing my first year, you know, more UJ, you know, thing, you know,
student life.
Yeah, you know, it's challenging. That's why now you can pick up from the characteristics. It's our like motor
also feminine.
You understand? Or the dominancy of
who the people that raise this person.
You understand?
When you say I see what you mean. And it's true, because in my house, at my home, there's 4 of us, 2 boys and 2 girls. So the way my parents raised us is that there was no necessity for me to go to the yard.
Yeah.
Bati. My brothers are there. Also, I think also for me, it might even just go into just other things that get really deeply personal, like my fears being accommodated. I'm deathly afraid of bats.
Yes.
So there was no way my family was going to expect me to go guys.
Sure.
So, but then for the most part, was done by my brothers. Yeah. Like even now, though my brothers are not there, we have my nephew who's around 18 or so. When we need physical strength, it's him that we call upon. Like, hey, so those are certain things that we can still say these are gender roles, because I'm not going to do it. I don't have the strength for it. And I've even said this a bunch of times in my life. I've said, if it requires for me working I can do it. If there's a man around me, he will do it for me.
So what happens the day, now let's say you're independent, you are
I'll hire someone to do it for me.
How much?
I'm willing to pay someone else to do it. Yeah. I'm seriously not going to put myself in a situation where I have to deal with bugs and snakes. It's just not going to happen. Yo, I freak out when I see a worm on a tree. It's a problem. We have problems. So for me, that's where it's always kind of been defined. But generally, we did grow up in a home where my mom did try, and let me not just say, but my mom was at home most of the time, and my dad was always at work. So my mom did try to instill within us the ability to wash the dishes, clean and do your own laundry, make your bed. Why? Because she said, I need my sons to be able to look after themselves before they toss someone else's child. So even though my brothers may not necessarily cook in the home and I'm there, my sister's there, they know they can do it. They do sometimes pitch in and help in with the work, you know. So it does. So what he says is important. It just really does go into the family you come from and how many the ratios of female versus male people that raise you, because you do see a difference in female-led homes and homes where it's mostly the man. We could argue for hours about it, but you know, there's always distinct differences that are very obvious. Yeah.
Because I was even about to ask, you know, for so in most cases, we are all aware that how we are raised in our families usually ends up affecting how we perceive relationships.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, for you, my brother, being someone who was raised in a household that was only full of women, how has that shaped how you view relationships? For this is how I'm supposed to treat a lady.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question.
It's a great question.
It is. Oh yeah, it is.
I'm so interested in answer.
I can see even my coordinator from Black Child is smiling about this thing right here.
The answer.
Okay. Well, from my side, I like this question, you know, because I think is the main thing that made me to even understand of what's going on. Oh, you know, she touched something related with the question that you're asking me right now, you know, especially when it comes of cooking, you know. Let me speak the dominance that I have played most of the time in order to know how to treat a woman, even if things didn't turn out in a good way at some point. But then, like, I was never taught how to cook from my house. But then I have observed on how do they cook. Even if I'm cooking it's not the same as how they cook at my house. So now, because of I knew, okay, it's dominant that everyone loves food, right? But then you know, women, they love
we need the extra energy.
Put some bit of displays around there, you know. So now I started when like, and my experience of cooking started in varsity, by the way. By the time when I entered UJ, I didn't know how to cook, and I started teaching myself on how to cook.
You were forced.
So now that's when I started practicing I love you, you know, your heart in doing that. You understand? So before that, understanding a woman came with me understanding their needs and their feelings, because of I would see at my house, I mean, like you have sisters, Lebona, they used to date, right?
Yeah.
And they come back home, they're emotional by a certain thing, and then they do talk to your brother, and they don't undermine you. That's when you start understanding more like, oh, then therefore I don't want to do this because she experienced that, right? And for another fact is that it's not like I'm speaking bad of my parents or either way, but then my father wasn't fully there, you know, at my house. So now you get to see of how your mother works so hard to raise you as a man, you know, like a woman to raise a man is not easy.
It's
You know, to build that man, you know, you understand? You understand? And you won't know nothing, but then it's going to have a little bit of understanding what the females want.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because of you were raised and observing each and everything that is happening in the house.
Sure.
Do you understand? Through females. So now that is why I could say that I had that touch, you know, to them to understand how, like, okay, this is how a woman should be treated. This is how you should exercise a certain power, especially when she emphasized about hokopatu, so it's something, you know, strength. You understand? There's some of the things that, we can say women can be independent in however way, but then at some point, a man watlokagala for other activities. Do you understand? And then coming back on that, it's a balance again. Not every man is independent from women. No, not every man. And trust me, I mean this even psychologically. So let's come back here. How can Majida? You know, I'm not speaking bad of Majida, but it is a reality. Sitting in Majida all the time and exercising each and everything about what's going on. Of what is other gender say. Do you understand? And same applies with women.
It's true.
You must be both at least to understand. You understand? Like sometime you just have to hang around with women in order to understand what is it that they want. What is it that they need? Like to understand the gender of female. Do you understand? Because
it's important to listen.
Yes.
It's important to be present in the moment, to hear what the next person, how they experience reality, so that you can be able to meet them at a point of understanding.
Yes.
I think if we all tried that, it would really do away with a lot of the politics that surround gender roles and gender politics. Is for us to try and meet each other at a point of understanding. For me, I have two brothers, right? And you see things like there are times where I expected my brothers to be emotional and to show me that side of them, but it didn't. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. Like when my father died, to this day I've never seen my brother shed a tear over it. And now, having understood certain things about the friends I've been with, the people that I've exposed myself to, I'm realizing that it's probably a heavy burden on him as well. I don't know if there are people he talks to. I mean, he's not even likely to talk to me because this is my little sister. And I have to be, because my dad's not here, I have exactly what and from this it's impossible not to see it. So if we were trying to understand and maybe meet each other at that point of saying, I understand that I'm not going to ever experience life like you do as a man, and you're never going to experience life as I do as a woman, and there's a whole other broader topic that we could go into, but that's not the topic of the day.
Yes.
But if we could try and meet each other at that point, halfway, some way. It's like I don't understand, as a boy child, as because right now what I'm noticing with my nephew is his father died when he was 9, and predominantly it's women. It's my mom, it's his mother, it's me. He has 2 younger sisters now. It's a lot of women, and although we are impressing upon him how to treat other women, I do sometimes kind of feel like he does need for my brothers to be there. He needs that male influence, because I do sometimes kind of feel like I maybe with other soft hapu.
No,
he's a very, very gentle soul. And sometimes I do kind of feel like a little bit of that male thing is needed for him. Definitely.
Yeah,
we're very, very close. Like, we're basically best friends. You think he's my brother because he's so tall. I'm one of the shortest people in my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. But mara it's there, it's obvious. There's definitely a difference in how boys and girls are raised. And I can say even, you know, I wouldn't say let's completely do away with the whole gender roles thing. I feel like when I speak about my politics, I always say we are equal, but we have different functions.
Sure.
We can never fill the same functions that men do. Women can never fill the same functions that women do, and vice versa. But what we can do is balance each other out, and I think that's why complement one another in one way or the other. And for me, having grown up in a situation where there was two of each, 2 girls, 2 boys, I watched my mom try to create that balance of and I don't want them to feel like they being preferred over the girl, or vice versa, or who's being preferred over. But in African families, you do see that boy children tend to be preferred over girl children, or girl children tend to have a certain inferiority towards girl children. We see it very often. We hear men saying, I want a son. First thing, every man I know who is African says he wants a son because he wants somebody to carry the family name. And if we were to look deeper into African cultures, we can learn even girls can do that. You know, where you're not married, so your father decides, no, she will bear children. All the children that she will bear will be those that carry my name. The sons that come from the daughter, the grandsons, will be the one that carry the father's name on. And these are things that we can just look into. So I think if we could maybe educate ourselves a bit more, be willing to have conversations without the constant need to scratch each other. The violence, guys, violence. Even though I believe in violence every day. And twice on Sundays.
Why do you believe in violence?
And because sometimes violence is the answer.
Twice on Sunday.
Black Child has a question there.
Yeah, so guys, I get a sense while we're talking about African children growing up in African families. I feel like we cannot talk about that setup without understanding culture. Because culture is a way of living, right? So now we're living in a monolithic society where we work with everything. So our families, the setup that we are living in, it's mostly influenced by Western culture. So I want to come to a question where do we draw the line? So now we see complexities such as feminism. Understand? Deep-rooted in the family setup. You understand? So also there's also cultural practices in African practice that I deem are unfair, such as Lobola, the modern Lobola. But I want to understand your view. You understand the modern culture that has infiltrated the African people. You understand? Also the complexities around the African practices.
I think we would have to go back in time. One of the things that we have to be aware of as a people, specifically this is aimed at the black child, is we don't know very much about our cultures outside of word of mouth that we've gotten from we don't know very much about our cultures pre-colonialism, right? Because it goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So we don't really know what the premise of relationships was then between the male child and the female child. We have certain information, and of course more research is being done, and we can obviously look into that research, but we don't really know, right? And if we were to look at now the world that we live in and go down into the trickle down of colonialism and the effects that it's had over the African child, we can say over the African family as a whole. We can say we've heard that, you know, African families, certain parts of research that I've done have suggested that there has been societies that were matriarchal. There have been societies where the girl child was just as important and as valued as the boy child. But then we come in and now we're being in a society, and I'm sorry to say this, that is patriarchal. And you do see people saying, I want a son. When they have daughters, a man will have 6 daughters and he will marry 3 other women looking for a son. You know what I mean? These are things that happen. And I would hate to say that feminism is a complexity when you look at how history has treated women and how basically history continues to treat women. Yes, there have been effective changes, and we're glad for those changes. However, there are still things that we need ironing out, and there are serious things that we cannot just overlook and completely not talk about, you know. But I would say the cultures that we currently have right now, it would be very difficult for us to separate them from the influence of colonialism. And we have to now either form new cultures, because traditions and cultures do change over time based on the era that people are living in at that time. It's good for us to have that history and to know it and understand it, but we are in a position where we can create a new culture. We can create new cultures within ourselves and within our families and traditions, and keep those up and raise our children in it based on what it is that you want to effect. I want a home where pretty much like my own, where, you know, you know where everything is, where it doesn't have to be my mom loves the yard. She has the energy for her half, nothing like that. And it's never been an argument in my family where it has to be my brothers. If I wanted to, I could. It was just no. Yeah, I chose not to do that. So we could. So yes, I don't think Lobola is a challenge necessarily. The reason I say this, when I was younger, I asked my grandmother about the tradition of Lobola, because I was raised, I'd say my grandmother was in marriage, and don't aspire to it. It's not feminism. Wow. But then my grandmother always said that what was I saying? Please repeat me.
Your grandmother taught you about the Lobola.
Lobola, yes.
The
history of Lobola. So if a man was not able to financially put up what is being asked for him, in terms of livestock or whatever, literal rocks, where the families were saying, we are in agreement to let this man take our daughter and take care of him the best way that he knows how. So it wasn't always that if a man was incapable of meeting those particular requirements that he could not marry. But now in the current environment that we are in, young men are choosing not to marry because parents are saying, well, if you can't afford it, it's not happening. Well, I understand. And we can then go into blaming things like capitalism and the fact that money rules the world, money talks and. Because the idea of Lobola was just to combine two families. It was never about I'm selling you a child or I'm selling a person as a property. It was never like that. Hence, and the chief of that village will say, these families have come together and they've agreed that this is happening. And we stamp that they are a married couple. And life happens after that. So it wasn't always where you couldn't marry the girl of your dreams. It was just never always a thing. It was about the agreement between, as people who believe in it was always about that. Never the one family getting rich off the other. It was never about that.
Well, adding on that, I do agree with her, né? And I had my brother literally was contradicting the statement. But then the reason why I'm agreeing with it, hypothetically so, né? Yes, we were colonized. We understand that there's a certain culture that we have practiced before everything that has happened with our history, né? But then again, yes, we have to. I think it's much more important as a black child. By the way, né? As a black child, I would continue to say that it's very, very much important to understand your roots. That's number one. Amongst everything, to understand your roots, it's very much important. Even if to the evolving culture that is present right now, it doesn't have to shift you from how you used to practice things before, right? The reason why I would not concede with the fact of that Lobola is unfair, right? I'm not conceding that it's unfair. I do concede that it's fair. The reason why I say that is because let me tell you. No, let me tell you. I do concede that Lobola is fair. Let me tell you why. You know why? Amongst everything, even psychologically so, acknowledgement, it's something.
Yeah.
You know, appreciation. It's not a purchase, yes.
Yeah.
It's just acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement.
Yeah, I acknowledge the fact.
500,000.
It depends. Okay, setting up a price, it's something else.
It's something else. It's like that one.
But then,
you know, often even the bride doesn't even get told how much was put on her head. She never finds out. It's very rare that you find where the family comes back and says, "This is how much we wanted for you."
yeah.
We said it before even.
No, but then, like, you know,
It was never. It was
setting
never.
a price.
It was
guys.
never, but now.
It's now, yes.
You know, setting a price, it's something else. Let me touch on the acknowledgement of why I say that Lobola is fair. It comes back to the family to give them, you as a man, let's say, let's make it practical, right? Let's say I'm in a relationship with her, and then it's been quite some years, and we have built each other in a way whereby we can see progress between us, right? Not only within our families, but then as well as between us, right? Because of the families start getting attention about or they are affected.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, I'm going to need something. You understand?
Yeah.
But then,
It's a deal.
as well, but then as well as the growth between the two people,
Yeah.
right? So now, the minute I as a man start seeing that like I've seen growth that has been happening, that's when now I'll go to the family. You know what am I acknowledging? I'm showing appreciation to show that you have raised a daughter in a certain way that I wished. Do you understand? The way she's practicing everything that I desire to see, I could see that she has practiced that from home. Do you understand? And then she hasn't forgot the roots that has raised her as a woman for her to be with me. Do you understand? I'm not saying that she has to go extra mile to do heaven and earth for me. No. But then basic practices. Do you understand? As a woman of what is it? The main things that you should do, not for me, but then for yourself. You know, to respect yourself. So me seeing that from a female, that's when now I go show appreciation to the family. It's like it's not Lobola is not like you're purchasing or like eta kaureka eta mo and then no, you understand. That is why we don't even promote divorce, even if it's practiced. But then as a black child, you do show acknowledgement to everything. Barutile ka tlhompho, barutile ka ho appreciate that, you understand? To understand the background that they're coming from, they show appreciation in everything, regardless of what. And then I do something, they'll show a certain appreciation to me that no one family. Do you understand? Through everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female, but then it shows appreciation. So to the point of being a marriage, like getting married, you know, to a female, or you guys getting married after some time, it's to show like, no, you appreciate the fact that they have been like this, and then you acknowledge that, and you can recognize that,
and you're pledging to take care of it.
Do you understand?
Continue to keep this particular thing that's given me so much value in my life. And I'm going to take care of it in the same way that you have continued to do until I met her, until we met.
That's an appreciation, because like remember that as much as we don't like to say it, but then it's much more like it's a transaction. You know, it's much more like it is, but then we don't like using that. Yeah, I mean, like away now, you know, I mean, like for her presence and everything. Like I can't do, but then her being present into my life, it creates a lot of changes. Do you understand? So, benefit when we create as a man, but then you have to learn a show or like kiboni, batwadi. No, like you've seen, you've been with the person for some time.
Y'all together, y'all been together for
from your perspective
of time.
From his perspective, you know what he's saying. He's saying right? I understand where you're coming from. Or like why kilon and then I understand that's what you're trying to say. But then at the same time, think about it, like culturally, so as I said, that as a black child, it's very much important to understand your roots, where you're coming from. This thing has been practiced for some time. Come commenting about Marjorie to place rocks.
Yeah,
right?
we place rocks.
It wasn't a matter of fact, like there must be a certain money that must be placed there. But then
it's a promise. It's more.
Yes,
it's
something.
more of a promise than it is anything else. To say you guys have really raised this person. Say you meet her when she's 25, and she's 25. Whatever value she's probably giving to your family, it's double that to you. It's double that katun kahabola. So, thank you for giving me a piece of this.
Yes.
I wouldn't.
She comes with a veil.
I think everybody has value. Even men have value. Because when we go into the ceremony of marriage, the woman's family to welcome the man, that's their appreciation. That's them saying, now, I'm here. Here's what we're saying, thank you to your family. Where? This is what we're thanking your family.
The main question for him should be like, why doesn't he believe in Lobola?
Let's hear from your side.
Why don't you believe?
Yeah, why?
What's your rift with Lobola? What did Lobola ever do to you?
No, I don't have a problem with the traditional Lobola.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the modern Lobola.
Yeah.
You understand?
The one of prices, 100K, 1 million.
Yeah, because it's too much. You understand? Especially in the context that you're living in, economically. So
Yeah.
life is hard.
Yeah.
And it like keeps on getting hard.
Yeah.
So if when you ask for 100,000, even 50,000, it's too much because like they want it on the spot.
Yeah.
So you have to take a loan. So as a couple, you start on a minus than a plus.
But if we are to look at on the ground situations, we've even seen it on Twitter where people were saying, I got married for 15K, and that was the entirety of the Lobola.
Yeah, because life is hard.
Because life is hard. So hence I'm saying, originally the intent is not to make your life hard.
Yeah.
No.
It's not.
Okay.
So
well,
yes, there will always be outliers of people who as always, there's good things and bad sides of everything. So obviously there's always going to be that feeling.
Yeah.
That's why. And this father's looking at this man like,
yeah, we're not
50K.
Yeah, we're not 150K. Yeah, it's bad.
maybe if money was taken out, maybe if we could do this.
What would we replace money
maybe
with? Because remember, in the beginning, it was livestock.
Personally, like, so modern day Lobola.
Yeah.
I feel like I get where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Because how Shabella, our generation in most cases, we view marriage as something called an investment.
It is.
Because okay, you don't 100K in. After 5 years, it's off. Why go?
I think.
No, but then they do pay back, don't they?
I don't know.
They don't.
I don't know.
Would you pay?
Let me answer this because cultures are I get to be culture in
Sure.
But when you've decided to rotate the remote, you don't get it back. There is a certain process you have to follow now that you've decided that you want to part ways. But you don't get it back because you still had her for X amount of time. You still had her. Whether it was 5, it wasn't a purchase. You were still gaining that value.
Yeah.
So the bill was decreasing.
No,
it was not.
I think for the
just because there were irreconcilable differences between you, it does not take away the good that she's brought into your life, does it?
The good of what?
Neither does it take away the good that you've brought into her life. So at the end of the day, it's you basically saying, I'm taking back everything. I'm taking the good.
Yeah, I guess she's leaving. I mean, she.
Why do you have to make it so difficult?
No, she's leaving. Like
she is
simple.
But what if you're the one that's
eh?
What if you're the one that's
no? But in most cases, the people who file for divorce are women.
Okay.
And I love it when people say women are the ones that always ask for divorce. People will drive you insane. Insane. You will be on the brink of losing your mind, and the expectation is for you to stay. Oftentimes when we hear that a woman filed for divorce, the reason is always irreconcilable differences. And it's often because she's tried. And we even know this. Months ago, I started telling you, I don't like that you do this. Can you change it? And give you a chance to effect that change.
And do you also understand?
Hey, do you understand that I don't like this?
After filing for divorce, they regret.
Because you were difficult. Oftentimes men only change after she's left. While you're still there, asking him to change, he doesn't make any changes.
Maybe women are too impulsive.
It's not impulsive if I'm giving you 6 months or a year, is it?
Oh, if you give me a time
For
frame,
example,
how is it fair?
Why? No. It seems like right now we're losing that key, you know. Now, you know what's the thing? Because like according to what I'm listening right now, Kayuka, no, it shifted from acknowledgement, you know, to what? To like, yeah, no offer either, so I'm leaving.
I'm leaving.
Yeah,
No, the problem is for him there,
Yes.
he's saying that if it's the woman that leaves, he has the right to go back and ask for his money back. And say, I want the money back. And I'm saying, oftentimes, she gets to the point of leaving because she's already been asking. Women very rarely just leave.
I think, what happens
when you
inside
say
Afro
this?
people?
When you say this, it kind of takes us back to communication.
Yeah.
How are you two communicating as a couple? From to the time when as the nearing of the ending of the relationship happens, do you as a man realize the change in how you guys communicate with each other?
You know, that's a very good touch.
Do you see it? Do you see the times when she starts not talking to you anymore? Do you see the moments where she said, hey, I don't like that you do this, and you know, with the point where you start saying, hey, oh, she's nagging. That's the point where you should be listening the most, because she's nagging. She's constantly saying, I don't like this, come on, do something.
What happens when a man does that and then a woman exercises what you're doing?
It's the same thing, same principle.
Is it fair?
applies. It is fair because I told you.
No, get out. Like, what I'm asking is it fair that like, let's say now, not personally.
Yeah.
If someone out there is watching, maybe my potential wife, I'm like, not to be quite honest, if it's bad, it's fine. But then I'm that person of negi. And then like, I don't understand why someone is not exercising that back, especially when we emphasize the thing of communication. Do you understand? Because I thought that I don't overdo it, but then I'm that person who calls. I'm that person who wants to like update me if you have arrived safe. You know, no, I'm inside an interview. I'll get back to you. You know, and then I get to like, hey, it was nice. I'm that person of keeping updates. But then other people, they don't exercise that back. Why is it happening from like is it bad? Because like at some point I heard like, yeah, nobody. You result if let's say that person doesn't give you back the very same thing, and then you report about it, you result being insecure.
I think in terms of
insecure, but
when the gender situation comes in, why going right back to the topic at hand, gender roles, because a man is not expected to be nagging. Whereas personally, I prefer men than nags.
I guess
Yo, call me up. Call me, hey, are you home? If I tell you, hey, I'm leaving home, I'm going to be meeting with Black Child, and I'll be. Call me, hey, how's the meeting going? Are you fine? Are you good? Because if you don't do that, then for me, I'm just reading it as you don't get.
But some women, they don't appreciate that one.
I think Havatwan have a So when we get into relationships with people, I think we're often very blind to, because you get excited by the rush of being in a relationship. You don't take into consideration things like your communication styles. This is where when you decide to marry, people will ask you questions like that. Are you guys compatible? And when people hear compatibility and the word compatibility, they think, hey, we have so much in common. She likes the same music. She likes this. She goes to church. She's educated. She loves, you know. And there's nothing wrong with those being the core values. But then you need to take into consideration things like, how does she communicate when she's okay, when she's not okay? How does he communicate when he's okay, when he's not okay? What do you need me to do? How's the shower? I had a problem with somebody who I was with, and whenever he wasn't okay, he would need space. And to me, that was like, space exciting, because I can just sit here and shut my mouth if you want. And he'd be like, no, but I need to be by myself. And at first, this was not clearly communicated to me. The first day I heard it, it drove me insane. I thought he was breaking up with me.
I think it all has to do with how we were raised.
Yeah, well, hence I'm saying is, I think also as young people, Harry did this thing, and it happens a lot in our families. They don't want to have these conversations with us. It's very hard to sit your parents down and ask your parents about their relationship value to and expect an answer, and without them taking it away. So you know, we have to be willing to sit and say, I've had to don't even look at me. And to understand that when your partner says, okay, I hear you, but now I want to be here. And then find a compromise. Because at the end of the day, a relationship is literally just two people meeting at a point that's not comfortable for both of them, for either of them, but has to be comfortable for both of them. You know, if wherever you find me, I'm always in a sweater, a hoodie, a blanket. And then you meet somebody who, even though it's all cloudy and cold, they'll be out in a t-shirt. Now we're two completely different people. But I'm saying, hey, Nhlanhla says, okay, I know if you try. Let's compromise. The compromise is, you can keep your blanket and we'll open a window. It's a compromise. We both. It's not warm, and it's not cold like you like it, but it's a nice meeting point where both of us are happy. I think that's the one thing that we lack. There's a lot of people when they think compatibility with, look, Matshidiso Matshidiso's into art. Matshidiso likes this kind of music. We have that as common ground. But what about the other things that really matter? Those things that when the divorce settlement gets here, they're irreconcilable differences.
You know, Matshidiso touched on something as she was talking, and of which I've seen that on like a lot of black families. I could say, black families, to be honest, are not exercising it. You know, the conversations about even and relationships with parents. Because like you said something. Or like this is let me clarify on this. You know what's the problem right now that we are having? Most of the families, the only advice that you would get, of which I'm not discarding that, it can continue if they want. Like Dala away, Dala Kulel Bashimani, Dala Kulel Banyal. Exact salam. Usay Jol. Do you understand? They're not telling you that okay, once you reach this stage, this is what you must do. And another thing that is boring, that we not even we don't benefit as well from black families, is that they don't give you the conversation, of which I wish like families could now practice this. People know like like maybe ele papa or ele me hanzelongwanyana. Ask advice wanyana or mushimani probably getting like, you know, it. I don't want to sound wrong, I like giving bad advices, you know. Those things are like mukwelenyana. Iri like you know, it has to shift from those
things.
When you
fix the relationship. Because now, even when you guys are in the home and you have an issue, and you're gonna take and if you're a girl, the first thing I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna call my best friend.
Why is it hard for you to sit down with your own family members? You know?
What's that? I have no idea why that's a thing. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, 2021, somewhere more. My brother came home drunk. It was festive.
Sure.
So then he sat down and then he woke us all up. He was super happy that day. He was just really happy that day. But when he got home, he woke us all up and then he had us all gather in my mom's room. And he asked my mom a question. He says, I want you to tell us relationship. What was it about him that made you end up deciding to build a family with this man? I want to tell you that a couple of weeks later, we would return and my mom said that she felt like we disrespected her. Like she said it felt like we were fighting with the Ramarans. And to this day I still can't get her to give me an answer as to why. Because now it's like it's important for us to know. Because when my brother sits down with me, he says, look, I want to have a family of my own. I want to bring someone's daughter here and have a family. But there are certain things I feel like no one can tell me. And it comes off as if I'm being disrespectful. So I don't understand why it's a thing with our black families where you're not allowed to ask these questions. When it comes to relationships, and at that point, you
don't you think maybe at some point, because we spoke about Western Western influences. let's not also forget batsadi ba bona le bona, they were raised in a certain way. When they are raising us, they are still recovering from their own generational traumas.
Yeah.
Like for instance, it felt like disrespect. Go ahead. They are taught you don't question. This is gonna lead me to like the next question. We are still on a part it's a Lobola relationship because I actually have a question, you know.
Yeah.
We are living in times where like feminism is alive.
Yes.
We are advocating for women's rights. And then I am for women emancipation.
Yeah.
And then I am.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I believe in it. But my main problem no. That's why go on a party alone.
Yeah.
We are advocating for 50-50. But when it comes to okay, don't say on Lobola, why is it still only me? Okay, because you mentioned something about how Bamoristan can invest.
Oh, what about you?
Then now they invested something called Nagada. So just as much as really 50-50.
Yeah, it goes.
Why is this 50-50 only being applied this side? It's on the other side.
That's where we would then have to go into things like quantifying. Let's quantify the value that somebody brings into your life. It's going to get culturally even at the point where the families have now agreed, okay, bye to Banyaman. Yes, I do think there's a disparity in that the man seems to cough up a bit more than the woman's family would. But it's not as if there is nothing that goes to the groom's family to say, no, thank you. He has finally come to take our daughter and, for lack of a better word, make an honest woman.
It's all from which perspective?
Okay,
some do, but it's supposed to come from Naga. I'm saying, originally, it's supposed to be they're supposed to want to be You don't know that.
It's much more likely
because by after
it's much more likely that it's like that. No, yeah, it's your money.
Yeah.
But then now I want to come back to the point there, his question that he asked to say that why isn't fair that Lynn Nankin says all of all is out. I understand that. They understand. But then to clarify on that, now I think there's something that we are forgetting, and it's been there. You know, it's been the before colonization. It's been there that the man always has to provide. You know, that thing of man. So like as a man,
that's why
you know that those practice. Man is a leader, man is a provider, man is a what.
She said something about us creating new traditions and new beliefs again.
Yeah,
it all goes back there. How okay we are raised from a man is supposed to do this. How do we create new traditions when we are still using some of because if we're gonna say okay, we're bringing a new structure, a new traditional belief system, it means we must
do away
with everything from Lobola. But if we're gonna be like choosing there for okay, this I can use, this I can use, that's where I feel like personal matata
yeah, but then you have
what you're saying makes sense when you say it would probably make sense to just scrap everything and start over. But do we have the chance to do so?
Yeah,
I would
think so. I think there's always a chance.
Besides,
and they still do their doings. But have you seen them?
They do. Actually, women get into loans. They give them money.
I'm telling you, the women that can come to over 50 are. It comes back to the thing of women earning much more than men. How does it sit with you?
And also, it goes back to the thing that he was asking or saying. Is it necessarily on his shoulders alone to bear as a man?
No.
Understand? There needs to be a certain level of trust. Like we've had these talks so many times that people will literally say, a woman will nail herself on a crucifix for a man that she cares about. She will go to that bank and say, 100K.
But don't you think
and
why?
then give it to you. And it comes back where what's the relationship between the two of you?
Because we try to simplify your tradition. For instance, but what's our question? Let's look at the relationship and our modern day relationships. Why is it that most of our relationships in our generation, they are failed? Where else we have our parents more than 40 years,
to add on that, now I think you know why the culture, as we come back to the culture that is being practiced right now, relationships right now are failing because of influence, not because of people want. Temptations and influences are the main things that makes relationships to fail. You know, from the very get-go, even the person who wants to cheat or who starts to cheat comes with a certain influence or a temptation that happens. I say night hop and cheater. We only and then you think it's cool. You know, the problem is that like that's another fucked up situation that people go through, is that they think it's cool, you know, to do that. They think it's nice. You see someone doing it and then they've done it nice, successfully, and then they've prospered through that osta. It comes back to that like osta and stuff. So that is why our relationships, or certain relationships, they fail currently right now because of influence. And then for the mere fact that you saw someone doing something wrong, you want to continue doing something wrong, but then better than that person. That is why relationships they do fail.
You're very right. Also happened in the way you know, like hang out and like in between. Well, I visit my grandmother in the village. What's up? Behind some class.
Yeah.
We are like that dog can come home today, go and it's normal behavior, and we see these. But where sometimes it's a woman who told you know, a man ends up raising a child that's not his, because if you there's a cultural belief in this talk. If a woman has a child with another man and she's your wife,
okay.
It's your child. Why are you so those sort of things where our cultures have always tried to do. I think at the core of it, our cultures and traditions have always tried to really maintain the family unit as it is, so that let there not be one child at you know, and a lot, there have been so many, yes, there are things about it that are completely wrong, completely trash, but at the core of it, the idea was to maintain and keep the family unit together. There's at the point where everything that we do centers around keeping the family unit together and moving as a unit. If we, because I don't think that exists right now. Relationships don't last because I'm thinking of me. I have to be happy, and there's nothing wrong with thinking of I have to be happy, but how does me reaching that optimum happiness affect the rest of the people that I'm with? If the people in this room were a family and my own happiness was my top priority, there's going to be times where the family unit suffers because and as with everyone else. So I think if we could find ways within our relationships, romantic relationships,
when you're ready.
Okay. And we are back again, guys, from our short break, and I'm still being joined by KG and Matshidiso in studio, as we are still talking about African gender roles. You know, how a boy child and a girl child are raised in African families in most cases. And as you have seen, they spend the last 45 minutes educating us, you know. That's the kind of content that we need, you know. When you come to the podcast, be you, man, open up, But apart from that, just click on the subscribe button and also go check us out. Check out our exclusive community there by Patreon. It's at Patreon/Talk With AKAY, the People's Podcast. That's where you can join like our exclusive community of practical problem solvers. We actually have a community of individuals, businesses, and people's coming together to come and try to find like solutions for the social challenges that are there in our communities without the political affiliations. Because in most cases we know as soon as we involve the politics,
Politics.
The process.
Politics.
Why more?
Politics will always be politics. It makes things, it complicates a lot of things.
So welcome back, guys. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I've been enjoying the conversation. I'm learning a lot, So just as we are about to hit the conclusion for our episode today, let me just resume our conversation by asking this question, because I want us to actually look at gender roles, how a boy child and a girl child are raised in African families, how it actually affects us when it comes to the workplace. Because matsatsi ya pospane mo thola se mama mo tshela se ne fiko steps in now tse bo etala mo tamba those things. So I just want to find out from young guys, how do you think how you are raised actually affects how you function in the workplace, from behavior, the relationships that you build?
Ooh, it can go either way. It can be good or bad. There are some people, they will come home, and that might even clash with other people's beliefs, because in the workplace is a lot like basically just out there in the street, like you don't get to have that freedom you're practicing to do the time at the workplace. At the end of the day, I feel like workplaces are places where we have to respect that we come from different families and we hold different beliefs and even different customs and traditions as well. So guys, it's people always, and people who do things like that now, they want to defend it by saying but how does it affect the next person? How does whatever that slave you put there affect somebody else? Maybe it goes back to, yes, you have this that has made you who you are, but also be willing to be somebody that is adaptive and willing to learn, so that it makes you be able to relate to other people. As much as the core of who we are comes from the homes that we're raised in, we still have to take that and make it relate to the world. We have to relate to the world, and there are certain things that you have to leave at home. There are certain things that you do have to leave it there. You pick it back up and when you get into the house, and that is for mostly professional and formal settings where you meet with people. It's crazy for me that when nobody tell us how you going to feel. And you're going to be telling me, but I'm not Christian. So if we're going to be functioning on that, I have that freedom, I have the freedom to exercise who I am. But how does it affect everyone else? At the end of the day, we have to realize as humans that we are social creatures. And we build communities. The first community you have is the family you come from. Then the greater community is the neighborhood in the area that you grow up in. Then you go out into the world and you meet people at work, at school. And even that is a community. You have to be willing to respect that community in the same way you expect that community to be willing to respect you. I think that's the basis of basically what I'm going to say about that.
Well, adding on that, from other influences, from what I have observed, what has been practiced is that other labor practices, they have their own culture in most organizations, right? I think we have to literally practices. I would say that it's very much important that when you enter within a working environment, it's important that you should stay with the concept of saying that I will practice the labor culture that is dominant within that organization, instead of me bringing my own culture. First thing first, when I was given a job description, was that I have to understand that there's a certain culture that is performed within this working environment. Then therefore, why do I have to bring my own culture from my home and practice it in that working environment? You understand? So now, we're not contradicting the fact of accepting other people's demographics and their backgrounds.
Yes.
Do you understand?
We're not against that.
We're not against that. But as much as there's culture that is performed from home, there's a certain culture in any working environment or in any environment. As a practical example, let's take probably maybe your home was a working environment for other things, right? As much as do you understand? Yes. It's a general context as it is
when you
like
Rome,
that.
do what the Romans do. You can't come in
And bring your
walk
own
into
culture.
it's going to clash.
Do you understand? So now I think now that's when a lot of people they must start understanding that. And then rights there's certain legislations that are implemented within organizations to say that we do not allow certain things to be done. Do you understand? Yes, there were complaints that were raised and said that now I'm being criticized for my culture. I'm being barking, like I'm being undermined or I'm accommodate with my own culture, but then yet I forgot that these are not the practices that I'm supposed to perform within that working environment. So I believe that as an individual, not for taking things as an offense, but then it's very much important to understand that I am not supposed to perform other practices if they're not related with my description. That's the first thing first, right? You have your own space to do your own thing at your own house. And then right now you're waiting.
If you're going to go into people saying that they're culturing, that they